Welcome back. Joining us now is Roberta Zanker, an attorney with Disability Rights Montana. So thanks so much for being with us. Let's talk a little bit first about your organization and what Disability Rights Montana does.
Well, Disability Rights Montana has been around actually for a long time, about 40 years. And we are a protection and advocacy agency, and there's actually a system of, we call them P&As, across the country that began in the 1970s as a reaction to conditions that people with disabilities experience. They were sort of ignored and left in different institutions, and many people living in inhumane conditions. So there was a kind of a great hue and outcry to do something, and Congress came up with a system of protection and advocacy agencies. So Disability Rights Montana is Montana's P&A, and today we provide a whole array of services for people who experience disabilities. Information and referral, short-term assistance, sometimes litigation, help with housing, employment, transportation, just a whole array of issues.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you talked about being an advocacy agency. So what do you actually try to teach people about disabilities and what it means to be disabled?
Well, it's very important to understand that people with disabilities or who experience disabilities are entitled to the same opportunities, benefits and services, and are able to experience those as anyone else. And so integration into the community and into society and inclusion are sort of the most important things that we want to emphasize, is to bring people in, to remove barriers to access, and to get people involved, that people can hold jobs, they can be part of all of the goings on in communities and in society, and we want to get people involved.
Great. And so you focus more on people's abilities rather than disabilities, right? Can you talk a little bit about how you keep that focus?
You know, language is critical, it's central, and people within the disability community emphasize something they call people first language. And that's just a great way to remember it. It's just people first. How do I emphasize the person rather than a disability that person may or may not experience? So that's what we would say is people first language, and focus on the person, not the disability. People who experience disability, it's just a trait. It's just, something that's part of them. It is not the person. It is not who they are. So we might say something like, you've heard me say already, a person who experiences a disability rather than that person is disabled, because that's not who they are.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about etiquette. So we heard from Cassandra in the first segment. She talked about, just coming down to her level since she's in a wheelchair. Do you have other tips like that for folks who are interacting with people with disabilities, how to act around them and proper etiquette?
Well, I think the first thing is that people who experience disability are generally looking for inclusion. They're not looking for sympathy. So they're not looking to be set apart or pampered or given special treatment. So if you want to help, that's fine. And sometimes people who experience disabilities do need help. But we should ask. We should just say, hey, can I give you a hand? And once we do that, then we don't, and if the person says yes, we don't assume what help is needed. We have to then go and ask, well, how can I help? What can I help you with? And then just kind of do that, not take over, not take control. We don't look down at people. We treat adults as adults and children as children.
Right.
One of the stereotypes is that when we encounter somebody who experiences a disability, we speak up.
Right.
Like it's a hearing problem, and it's not. Okay. So, we don't have to do that. We just have to be ourselves.
Perfect.
And allow that person to be themselves and try to engage with the person, not the disability.
Perfect. Can you talk about some of the laws that protect folks who experience a disability?
There are actually a whole host of laws, and when I do presentations in this area, I actually hand out a page and a half of disability laws. But some of the principal ones would be the Air Carriers Access Act. We're certainly familiar generally with the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's also the Fair Housing Act, which deals with rental housing and that sort of thing. And in education, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the 501 education laws as well, Rehabilitation Act. So all of those laws work together to provide for access and benefits and services for people who experience disabilities.
And you mentioned a big one there, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. We're just about out of time, so this is a tough one, but can you just give us a couple things about what that act does for folks?
The ADA levels the playing field. It provides for access and opportunities to benefits and services in public accommodations, government services, employment, housing, education, transportation. It's a very wide and broad, all-encompassing law. We're certainly familiar with what we call the ADA guidelines, which deal with parking spaces and restrooms and curb cuts and all of those things.
Okay, perfect. So we need to pause here for just a quick break. But coming up next, we'll talk more with Roberta from Disability Rights Montana about additional requirements in the ADA to benefit those people who experience disabilities. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.